my name is Jessica Pingwild, and welcome to my YouTube channel. I was born with child syndrome, which means I've never experienced life without my disability. It's a part of me, it's a part of my lived experience, and it's never going away. It's going to constantly be a massive part of my life. And it's always been a massive part of my life, especially when I was a child. But when I was a child, I couldn't fully comprehend the idea that I was different and that the world was not built with my needs in mind. This made life particularly frustrating when I was unable to fully participate in activities held in my community or at my school. I just always assumed that I should be having the same experiences as everyone else. But that just wasn't the case. It's 2021. Technology exists to make life more accessible. Yet, we're not utilizing it to the fullest ability. Meaning that people at every single age level are being needlessly left out of opportunities and activities that they could benefit from. I am very passionate about accessibility for all age levels. Truly, I could talk your ear off about my ideas for public transportation or the job market or all of the different things for pretty much everyone. But when it comes to children, I practically become rageful. Why? Because if the technology exists, why are we still leaving children out? Why are we leaving anyone out? But particularly children who are going to carry those traumas, who are going to carry those negative feelings of being put on the sidelines and not being allowed to fully participate. They're going to carry those into adulthood and constantly be remembered that society is not built for them, and it's going to hold them back mentally, emotionally. It's going to give them all of these different mental anxieties, and it's ultimately not teaching non-disabled kids about disability, and once again, making sure that future generations do not prioritize accessibility. Pretty heavy, huh? Well, it is. And it should be taken so seriously. Something as simple as tweaking a little game just slightly to make it that much more inclusive can be life-changing for a child. And not just the child that's benefiting, but also all of the children that are participating in that activity, because they all are learning a huge, valuable lesson that so many people forget about. So with all of that in mind, let me tell you why I'm here today. Since we're currently in the Easter season, and I have loved Easter since I was a little girl, I wanted to bring some Easter festivity to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, I'm going to share a short little story from my past, while also giving about 5 different accessibility tips on how you can make your Easter egg hunts more accessible. So, let's dive in. I grew up in a very small town in central Illinois, and every single year they would host community events for different holidays throughout the year. For example, Halloween. They'd always hold a costume party / contest in our recreational center. They'd have all sorts of different games. You would bob for apples, they'd have a cakewalk, and you'd obviously get to trick or treat a little bit too. It was so much fun, and it was always a great way to get to know other people in the community and ultimately just have a nice weekend day out with your family before a really exciting holiday as a child. Well, my community did this for Easter as well. They had an annual Easter egg hunt in one of our parks. At the time of this story, I think I was about 5 or 6 years old. I don't remember exactly, but that seems to kind of fit the timeline. But I know that I was old enough to have participated in at least one other Easter egg hunt at the community level in the past. And I loved it. I had so much fun. They had hidden the eggs in these really cutesy spots, and I got so much candy that first year. So of course, when the opportunity came to go again, I was all on board. So naturally, when the big day arrives, my parents and I show up to the park, and I am pumped. All of the kids are around, and I'm just like ready for the candy. That is, until I see this sight laid out in front of me. This year, the eggs are not hidden, not even a little bit. About 50 to 100 feet in front of me, I see this massive pile of Easter eggs. And I truly do mean massive. It's enough to make sure that, the 50 to 100 kids that are all stood in a line waiting to participate in this event can get some candy. But unlike a lot of the other children who see the eggs and are getting excited, I'm being filled with a lot of hesitancy and a lot of fear. Because I know in that moment, even at the ripe age of 5 or 6 years old, that this is not going to be accessible to me. That doesn't stop me from trying though. Oh no, of course not. I'm still going to try because I want the candy. I want to participate. I want to have fun with all of these potential friends. I want to do the things that other people my age are doing. I want to have fun, even if I know that it could be dangerous for me, and even if I know that it's probably not going to work out for me in the end. And I think it's really important for me to clarify that I'm not using a wheelchair in this story. This was back when I was using my prosthetic full time. It was also back when my skin was really, really red, dry, flaky, painful. So the prosthetic wasn't my favorite thing to wear, despite the fact that I was wearing it all the time. It made moving very uncomfortable. I walked with a limp. I still walk with a limp, but I walked with a really bad limp, and ultimately excessive movement, like running, didn't make it better. It made it worse. So when the buzzer chimed and it was time to run towards the pile, because essentially that's what we were supposed to do. We weren't supposed to go seek and find anything. It wasn't an Easter egg hunt, it was an Easter egg sprint, essentially. When that happened, I was left in all of the other kids' dust. I couldn't run. I could, but I couldn't run fast. I was limping so bad, I was going wobbling back and forth, and it hurt so bad that I never practiced, I never got better, and ultimately, that hurt me in this scenario because I didn't get a single Easter egg. Now, regardless of the fact that I knew that I was going to struggle with this scenario, I didn't totally realize that I wouldn't get any eggs. So naturally, I burst into tears. My parents were livid, and thankfully, some very nice children noticed that I didn't get any eggs, noticed why I didn't get any eggs, and lent me some of theirs. I shouldn't say lent. They gave me some of theirs, which I can't tell you how much that kind gesture meant to me and continues to mean to me to this day, because honestly, this single event, this one single inaccessible event, the fact that my family and I talk about it so much to this day shows just how impactful it was. I still can't believe that it happened, to be quite honest with you. And my mom always tells me that because this happened, we never went back to any of the community Easter egg hunts, and instead, they would have to do Easter egg hunts with me every single night leading up to Easter once they got the Easter decorations out. So they would hide the eggs around the house. They didn't necessarily put candy in them every night, but they would put eggs around the house so I could go find them because I was so upset about this thing that I wanted a real Easter egg experience for years after that. Like probably I don't know, until I was like 10 or maybe even older, I don't know. But I was like in love with Easter egg hunts and I wanted a proper one every single night. And my parents, being the incredible human beings that they are, always obliged. But seriously, how messed up is that? In some ways, I feel like maybe they were trying to make it more inclusive and accessible because by not hiding the eggs, maybe they thought now everybody will get some. They're just out in the middle. It'll make it really easy. Just a free-for-all. But it wasn't accessible. Not at all. And to be totally honest with you, it was dangerous. Some kids were really passionate about candy and they were like throwing themselves into the pile of eggs. I mean, somebody could have gotten hurt. I'm sure there were a lot of kids who didn't get as many eggs as some of the other really fast ones. It didn't make sense to me then. It doesn't make sense to me now. It's never made sense to my parents. And I think Easter egg hunts and other activities like these should be made accessible any chance you get. Even if you are looking at your class or the group of kids that you're catering to and you don't see anybody with an outward facing disability, it doesn't mean that their ability level is on par with all of the other kids that are involved. You should always try to make things as accessible and as inclusive as possible in every situation that you're a part of. So with that in mind, I'm going to give 5 quick little tips to help make sure that your next Easter egg hunt is as accessible as possible. Now keep in mind that these tips are going to be very general. If you're a teacher and you have a class that includes a person with a very particular disability, then what would actually probably be best for you to do would be to ask that student or that student's parent what you could do to make sure that your activities are as inclusive of them as possible. It's so hard to generalize about disability because there are so many different types of disability out there. So I think it's really important to put that clarification in place before I really start talking, because at the end of the day, if you want to be as inclusive as possible, you should always be consulting the source that you want to be including. So with that said, let's get into it. Number 1 is the most important thing you can do, and it is to limit the number of eggs that each child can get. At the beginning of your event, you just make a simple announcement saying each child is only meant to get 10 eggs or 12 eggs or however many eggs that it takes to make sure that everybody gets the same amount, and then you let them have it. Most parents will enforce it. If children do have an issue with it, it usually will be masked by the idea of having any sort of candy at some point or other, so I don't think you have to worry too much about that. But if they are frustrated by it, like I said, the parents usually will enforce it. And ultimately, it just makes sure that everybody gets the same amount of eggs. Even in the horrible situation that I explained before, if there were a limit to the amount of eggs that each child could get, I would have gotten some. Even though I was light years behind everybody in the running department, I still would have at least gotten some eggs if there had been an equality limit in place. If you're dealing with a smaller size group, another fun way that you can do this is to color code the eggs or use patterns or different things like that. This way, every child has their own specific set of eggs to look for. And one thing that's really great about this too is if you know of different ability levels included, let's say Billy is in a wheelchair, you can hide all of Billy's eggs at eye level to make sure that he is able to grab them and able to see them in a way that some other students may be able to bend over or reach up high. I highly recommend that specific option if you can do it with a smaller size group. Obviously, if you're at the community level, just setting a very base, strong, hard limit is probably going to be the best bet. Number 2, always try to host your event indoors when possible. Now, I know it's springtime and a lot of people want to be outside, but I'm going to be quite honest and say that the grassy terrain or gravel terrain is not easy for a lot of people with physical disabilities to maneuver around. Even if they're not wheelchair users, me as a prosthetic user struggle in grass. The unevenness of the dirt in the grass just makes it really difficult, and it does slow me down too. I already run slow with my prosthetic on. I don't need any help. So it just, in general, would make it so much better if you can host the event indoors or on a very flat pavement. So if you are in a parking lot, let's say, or some sort of kind of paved area, like a picnic pavilion, something like that. But just in general, try to keep that in mind when you're having large events like this. Number 3 kind of goes along the same lines, but make sure that the space is open. Obviously, with an Easter egg hunt, you want there to be some things that you can hide the eggs behind. That's fine, but you want to make sure that the things are actually spread apart enough that students of all ability levels can sneak by them. Wheelchairs obviously take up a significant amount of space. Can my wheelchair sneak between this tree and this bush? That's a really good question to be asking, especially if you're going to be hiding the eggs kind of behind those things. You need to really be thinking about where you're placing these eggs and ultimately what the obstacles are that could potentially be getting in the way. And again, this will benefit children who are not in wheelchairs and children who are non-disabled as well. Number 4, I've actually already hinted at, but I think it's important to discuss it nonetheless, and that is to make sure that you're hiding the eggs in an area that is easy for people of all heights and all ability levels to reach. Of course, if you're dealing with a community-wide event, you may have some children who are older than others and who want to be challenged more than others. One way that you can combat this is to have multiple egg hunts for different age levels. But if you do that, let's say you have an age level from like 8 years old to 11 years old or something like that, right? You still need to be putting some eggs at eye level that people in wheelchairs or people with different mobility aids or any sort of thing like that can still easily reach and see, for that matter. I'm telling you right now that the reason that most children participate in large egg hunts, maybe not family egg hunts, but large egg hunts, is because they want candy. They want the little gift they get at the end. They want the excitement of that. They don't really care about the seeking and the finding. Of course, you don't want to make it so easy, like my community did, where easy, that you just run into a pile of eggs and you pick up whatever you can grab, and it's a mad, like, war, practically, to try to get as much candy as possible. But it still doesn't matter how easily placed these eggs are. To be quite honest with you, the easier the placement, the happier these kids are going to be, because they're going to get the candy a lot faster if they can find the eggs a lot easier. Number 5, or the final way that you can make your Easter egg hunt as accessible as possible is to provide an easy way for children to grab onto eggs that may not be at eye level. There's a lot of ways that you can do this. You can attach a string to the egg, so if it's up high, they can pull the string and then the egg will come with it. Or I've seen different things online where people attach balloons to the egg. And yes, it obviously makes it very, very clear where an egg is hidden, but it's a beautiful one to look at. A yard or a space full of balloons. It's stunning. And second of all, it's very easy for somebody of pretty much any ability level to just simply pluck a balloon with a long string off the ground and be like, oh, there we go. There's an egg. I get candy now. Another great option that is similar to this is to provide a grab stick for all of the children involved. Providing this option to every child involved allows the child the opportunity to advocate for their own needs and to be like, yeah, actually, bending over is not really great for me. It would be absolutely wonderful if I could have one of those grab sticks too. Also, it makes the children that need them feel less awkward about the fact that they need them because every child was offered the stick. And ultimately, they're really cool. You can get them with different animal heads on them, or you can have them with fun little designs, and it just adds like some personality to the event as well. I used to have one around my house, and even though I didn't really get it with the intention of using it to grab things around, I still used it for that purpose. And it was a little dinosaur head, and it made kind of grabbing things super fun. And we used it around my house all the time to like just, I don't know. It wasn't a necessity for me, but it was something that was used, and I always enjoyed using it because it brought some fun personality to whatever experience I was using it for. So there you have it, guys. That is my video for this week. I hope you enjoyed it and you can see why accessibility is so important to me. If you know of anybody that is hosting events that they want some tips and tricks on how to make activities more inclusive of everyone at all age levels and all ability levels, be sure to put them in contact with me. I'm actually an accessibility and disability consultant, and I would be happy to help you plan your event, your activity, your opportunity, whatever it may be, to help make sure that the most people possible are able to participate in that event fully and without too much trouble. So if that's you, be sure to either comment below, find me on Instagram, send me an email, whatever it may be. I'm open to help you. But with all of that said, I truly hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. I know I did. It's always fun to think about how we can make things more inclusive for all people, but particularly children, and fun little games like this. Easter, like I said, was a big deal for me growing up, and Easter egg hunts were really fun. And to make sure that every child gets to experience that fun activity to the fullest extent is definitely something that I hope this video can help others with as well. So with all of that said, be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and leave me a comment below if you have any other tips and tricks on how to make Easter egg hunts or other activities more accessible and inclusive. If you have any other activities that you would like me to cover as well, any sort of games, sports, you name it, put it down in the comments and I'll do a future video on those. And then of course, hit that subscription button and the notification bell so you always know when I post a new video. Even though I've been kind of on a little hiatus for the last 2 weeks, I do have some exciting content coming up in the future, and I do not want you to miss any of it. So make sure you hit those buttons so you can get notified every single time I post. And finally, if you're at all curious about my life or my personal disabled lived condition, as well as disability in general, and also other general topics of self-love and body positivity, I highly encourage you to check out my social media down in the description below. I'm at The Rolling Explorer on everything except for Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Clubhouse. So I am on all the main social channels, so be sure to go follow me there for all sorts of fun, entertaining, and educational content. And then finally, you can also find my blog down in the description below. It is therollingexplorer.com. Here I talk about a lot of more educational topics surrounding disability, but also some personal topics as well, and just some fun, entertaining, pop culture related stuff too. I just think in general, it's a really great educational hub for people that are learning and kind of at that beginning stage of learning about disability. So be sure to go check out all of that in the description below. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I will see you next time.